So what happens when two third-generation Arizona women authors who are passionate about their state start talking about experiences, insights, and memories of different places? They don't stop talking. They write a book, and then they start a podcast. Welcome to Celebrating Arizona with Julie Morrison and Lisa Schnebly Heidinger. Grab your favorite drink and settle in. We're celebrating Arizona, going everywhere from A to Z. And we're off.
Welcome back to Celebrating Arizona, and oh my gosh, do we have a guest. And only now do I realize I call you Greg McNamee, but are you Gregory McNamee in the world?
Oh, friends call me Greg and many other things, but Gregory is my professional name, let's say.
Okay. So if I refer to you professionally, Gregory, got it.
You may call me anything you care to.
Fortunately, I don't think I've ever had is it rancorous thought about you. I don't remember any. I remember.
Well, you're in a distinct minority.
I remember tons of great amusement, but that was never at your expense. It was because you were always funny. So in a minute, I'm going to have you trace us kind of from the beginning of your Arizona time and then what you've been doing here. But my beginning with you, if I remember correct, would have been 1981 or 2-ish, probably, because that's when I was dating Ed Lawler, and I met you at a Arizona Daily Star Downtown Bureau holiday party.
Yeah, just about this time of year, a very long time ago now.
That's right. And you were then at the U of A Press, correct?
That is correct, yes. I was an editor there for 10 years altogether before I left and went freelance.
Okay. So back us up even a little farther. What brought you to Arizona from where?
Well, I came out here to go to college, and I grew up in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. I was just back there for my 50th high school reunion, which was a lovely thing.
Oh, my gosh.
A pretty distinguished class of people, retired military general, Army general, a couple of Pulitzer Prize winners, just a pretty good bunch. I was the underachiever of the class. So, but I came out here to go to college for a couple of reasons. And one was, I had a ride to go to the University of Virginia, but I didn't want to because my high school was going to the University of Virginia. And so I thought, what's the polar opposite of Virginia? Someplace that's not green and not wet. And oh yeah, that's right.
Boy, did you find that.
I certainly did. Yeah, I landed here in August. Went for a hike my very first day here to up to Seven Falls, and just about baked. And it was fun. But I always tell people though that the real reason I came to Tucson was to convince Linda Ronstadt to fall in love with me. Regrettably, of course, she'd been in California for about 10 years at that point, and so I missed that particular boat. But somehow or another, I have been all over the world, and I always come back to Arizona, and I'm always very glad to come back to Arizona.
Born in Germany because?
My father was an Army officer. We were, in those days, I'm old enough that we were still keeping an eye on the Germans to make sure they didn't misbehave again. And so yes, I was born in a German hospital, as it happens, because the American hospital the obstetrics wing was closed for renovation or something or another. And so I was born in a German hospital, which... technically, I suppose if things really go south, I can move from Arizona to Germany.
I was just wondering then, do you have dual citizenship?
Not formally, I don't believe, because I don't think back in those days you could have dual citizenship. I think that was a later innovation, or renovation maybe, but whatever the case, I know where the consulate is in Los Angeles. So as I say, if they come looking for me, I'm out the door.
Of all the people I know personally, you might be at the top of the list of people who I would expect to have to seek sanctuary at a at an embassy or whatever,
Yeah,
for no particular
yeah.
reason that you except that you are colorful. So, what I was going to ask was, you have a lot of different skill sets. Can you just kind of run down those and say, so I do this, 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 and this in the real world?
Well, my foremost reason for being, I think, is uh, it might sound a little snooty, but I kind of like to think of myself as what they used to call a man of letters, right? So somebody who is not bound to a particular. I work in publishing. I work as an editor for publishing houses, freelance. I write. I've written 45 books and 10,000 plus periodical pieces, and so each day is. I've been freelance as I mentioned for since 1990, and each day is different enough from any other day that I'm never bored.
That is marvelous. And when I wrote about you, when you did photographs for the Centennial book, it was 30 books. So you are prodigious. Prodigious? Is that the right word?
Yeah, I'm a run-on sentence.
Except you go all over the place. I mean, there are so your I want to say children's. There's so many different topics and so many different areas. And I think of you as Arizona because to me you're one of the riders of the Purple Sage, but you do international stuff too.
Yeah, and again, not to sound too highfalutin, but there's really nothing in this world that doesn't interest me, and I long ago made a commitment to myself that each day I was going to learn something new that I hadn't known before, and that could be.
Wow.
That could be something, I mean, just pulling the encyclopedia down and just looking at a piece, or reading a dictionary of saints, or anything like that. It's just to with any luck, to keep from going completely demented, which could happen at any moment now. But
What
but
a marvelous vow.
well, it's the Emma Goldman, the great anarchist, always said that you always have a book with you because you never can tell when you're going to be arrested, right? And so
Okay, do you mind? Have you ever been arrested?
oh, a couple of times, yeah, just for general malfeasance, but nothing that stuck.
Okay. Well, that's good. And did you
Yeah, and
read
of
while
course,
you were pulling?
no, and anymore they don't let prisoners have books. I've only been in for a couple of hours here and there, as a result of anti-war demonstrations and things like that. But these days, as I understand it, because I used to give books to the prison system, the Arizona prison system, and they will no longer they no longer accept books because, of course, you give a prisoner a book and they might get some ideas, and they might they might
Think.
they might use them. Yeah, they might use them. They might
No.
you never can tell. It's just one of the many things that need to be fixed in this world.
Wow. Do you, because I think we're the same age, once in a while identify with Mary Coulter, the Fred Harvey designer? There's such a thing as having lived too long. Do you once in a while for a minute think it just keeps getting worse and I not like how that feels?
I think of the way I've said it, Lisa, is that when I got to be this age, I'm pushing up on 70, and when I got to be this age, I thought that everything would make sense. I thought that when I was young, I thought, okay, that's the wisdom that you get as an old person, is that you figure out how the world works, and I am completely baffled. I do not know how the world works. I cannot, for the life of me, conceive of how so many people think about the world, except that I think there are just an awful lot of people who are victims of fright and free-floating rage. They don't know why they're mad, but they're afraid. And
That's beautifully put.
yeah.
I remember sometime in the last year and a half, the sheriff up in Coconino saying he thought that pandemic had given the entire globe PTSD, and then he felt like there was another year and a half or so left. And I don't know, but I think that this started before that happened, but I do feel like maybe that contributed. And I kind of think, well, the World War One and the flu epidemic, I bet that was pretty rough, but it does seem like this has tested us in fascinating ways. And I think your description is perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because COVID made almost no difference whatever in my life, because that is my life. I walk across the patio to my office and lock myself in the office, and 10 hours later I emerge and pour a beer and sit in the backyard and do the things that I did, pandemic or no. So. Yeah, it's who was it? It was I think Blaise Pascal, who said, "Man will not be at peace until he is able to sit in a room by himself." And
Nice.
yeah, yeah. So no, I'm glad we're not in pandemic. I'm glad we're not in that situation yet. But I'm sure something else will come along to make our lives interesting.
But meantime, you are, yes, primarily a writer. But then you also speak a lot.
Yes, used to, when we were funded, I was a speaker for Arizona Humanities, as you were, and these days I was invited to come up to Phoenix thanks to a kind of a Friends of the Library situation, which is taking care of that. But then for our county library system, I'm a speaker, and I'll kind of wander around from branch to branch, spreading joy.
How marvelous. That is a
Yeah.
lot of lucky people.
Well, I'm the lucky one, and I was thinking about it just the other day that I have, through hook or crook, I've managed to live a fairly charmed life so far, um, because I've been my own boss for almost my entire working life.
Isn't that
And
marvelous?
yeah, and I know what kind of dastardly things I'm up to. I never could tell what dastardly things my bosses were up to. So
Well, and when you said 10 hours in your office, I don't think I've ever worked 10 hours in a stretch in my life, which is why you are so successful and I am still figuring stuff out. That is tremendous discipline. And it takes that, I guess.
when on the occasions, I taught for at the University of Arizona for 14 years. Strangely enough, teaching an economics class, but it was writing to economists, and those are some hardworking people. Those budding economists and budding business people, and even so, I told them, you 9/10 of it is just showing up, right? 9/10 of it is being there, sitting at your desk, and magic will happen eventually, but you have to be there.
Yeah, boy, that is way true. Well, you know what? Let's take a quick break and then we're going to come back and I'm going to ask you about your Arizona.
Okay.
From the AZ-250 commemorative category is the Mayor's Bluff Veterans Memorial off 191 near Clifton. You can walk a steep 300-foot hiking trail called America's Long Walk for Freedom. This tribute includes more than 1,000 replica dog tags and a large metal soldier silhouette. These honor sacrifices of armed forces members from Greenlee County. It's known as a place of healing and reflection. So we're back, and you have written more about Arizona and parts of Arizona than maybe anybody I know, and if not, way up there. So I'm really eager to hear what places, and I don't mean you have to pick the top, but what are some of the places that beguile you?
Oh, there are so many, Lisa. I was asked this question just the other day, and I said, I can't think of a single point in the landscape of Arizona that is ugly unless it's human-made ugliness. The natural landscape, I honestly can't think of. Every place has its charms. Now, I want to say I mentioned my father was in the military, and we were moved around quite a bit when I was a kid, and to some kind of awful places sometimes. And my father said, "Look, you have to find some good thing about where you are, otherwise you're going to be miserable and you go crazy." And so, so I always bear that in mind when I'm traveling, and I drove back to my wife and I drove back to Virginia, as I said, for my high school reunion, and I can't think of a single place that we passed through that was ugly. I mean, even Texas has its charms, So, so all that said, there are places that I always love going back to because it's as if I'm seeing them for the very first time. And one of them
Really?
one of them is just above Canyon de Chelly. And Canyon de Chelly, I think, is if I had to pick one place in Arizona that was not in the Sonoran Desert, which is my querencia, as they say in Spanish, it's where my heart lives. But Canyon de Chelly is a place that any serious traveler, I think, needs to see and needs to go and look and just be quiet and just look. And lives are changed, I think, by that. And Navajo people, my grandfather grew up on, my mother's father grew up on the Navajo reservation, and
Oh, you're so lucky.
yeah, well, his father was worked at a trading post. He was an Anglo, but worked at a trading post, and I think I'm just sort of preternaturally inclined to Navajo folk as just wonderful senses of humor, wonderful ways of puncturing your stereotypes. And I will tell you one quick story about that. I was in Canyon de Chelly once on a February day, and it was probably 10 degrees below zero. And I went to Antelope House there, and was sitting and looking at Antelope House, and a Navajo man about my age came over, and he sort of sat about 10 feet away from me, and the etiquette of a situation like that is nobody says anything for a little while, and then finally somebody says something. Once you're kind of cool with each other's presence. And he looked over at me and he said, "Hey, do you know anything about the internet?" And I said, "Well, yeah. One of my long-standing gigs for about 10 years was as an editor for Amazon.com, back when they had editors and back before they turned evil, and so I had helped set up Amazon.com, the site, and I told him that, and I said, "Where do you live?" And he pointed to a hogan across the way, and I said, "Do you have a generator? I don't see any electrical." And he said, "No, I'm just going to drive into Flagstaff every couple of days and check. I want to put up a website to sell my jewelry." And so you think, okay, that's about a 3-hour drive from Canyon de Chelly to Flag, right? So he's going to do that a couple of times a week. And, again, it's just kind of, puncturing every expectation you might have of, the noble savage, right? I mean, it's just, yeah. Another time I was at Canyon de Chelly, and it was a very windy, cold day, and I was looking down at White House ruins from the top, and a Navajo man again came over, and he said, he said, you know, they had to ban hang gliding from here. And I said, I said, well, I mean, who on earth would hang glide off of this anyway? And I said, but I imagine you had to have a pretty heavy insurance load. And he said, no, it was just cost too much because we had to exorcise the ghosts each time.
Oh my
And it was just
gosh.
too expensive, you know. It's too much of a burden for the tribe to carry. So,
Wow.
and again,
That's
I think, okay,
beautiful.
oh, absolutely so. And again, it's just one of those things that, you know, way out of left field, and I just love it. So, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
Caney de Chelly, I think, and the Lukachukai and Chuska mountains, which are behind it, are magnificent too. You know, you get
Do
high
you know
up
I've
there and you
never
can
been up
see.
into those mountains?
Well, there's a 4-wheel drive road that will take you up all through them, and there are some sites. You know, you can
Oh.
when you get up there, you can see Shiprock all the way over to Shiprock in New Mexico.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's definitely worth seeing. The sad to say, I would say on my top of my list would also be the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And
Oh.
that's going to be inaccessible for some time. I don't know how long. Nobody knows how long, um, but that's it. I love the area around in western Arizona along the Bill Williams River, and that's a place that is accessible to people with, you know, a good sturdy pair of legs, and but otherwise not. It's pretty challenging country, and
I've not
I was
gone. Good for
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was no, you know, Chuck Bowden was the great desert rat traveler, you know, who would just put on his tivas and head out, no matter what time of day or what time of year. And I was never quite that macho, but that was Bill Williams River is a place that really can test your mettle, so to speak.
Oh.
And my final, let's see, that's 4. Well, we'll just make it 4. That's the magic number in Native American thought, and
Okay.
would be the uh, Tinajas Altas Mountains, which are down on the southwestern corner of Arizona, very close to Yuma, and it's right where the last mountain chain before you get to Yuma. When you go I-8, you know, you kind of climb up the highway into the mountains there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are called the Gila Mountains, but it's the same mountain range, and it goes all the way down to the Tinajas Altas, the high tanks, called because there are
Oh.
natural cisterns in the rock that contained water. And back in the days of desert travel, it was right at the end of what they call the Devil's Highway, right, the Camino del Diablo, and there was
Oh.
water, you know, but nowhere else along that route. And so, you know, I mean, people were very grateful to get there, and it was
Boy, I
fantastically,
bet if they
yeah.
did.
Yeah, it's just fantastically beautiful down there, and it's really, you know, if the Sonoran Desert in, let's say, Saguaro National Park, if that's romper room, then the Cabeza Prieta and the Tinajas Altas are grad school. You know, I mean, it's
Okay.
it's rough country
Yeah.
out there, but just life alteringly beautiful. You know, you get down there and you see that, and you just see the immensity of the place. You know, just how big, and that's another thing about Arizona that you know, back in Virginia, if you stood on a hill, you might see a couple of miles, you know, in any direction on most days. Um, Out here, you stand on a hill and you can see 40, 50, 60 miles away. And it really gives you a sense of your place in the universe, which is
Boy,
a
yeah.
very, very small place.
That's marvelous. Well, I love how far off the beaten track you both pursue and like. I think some of us tend to stick with, oh, I like Prescott and Jerome and Sonoda and blah, blah, blah. But you really do bushwhack. You get out there.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and of
wonderful.
course, all of those places are worth seeing. Prescott and Sonoyta and Jerome, every place has its charms. I mean, even Kingman has its charms of all places. So
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, my mom said, you could be happy anywhere, but I'd rather be happy in Tucson than Ajo. And I thought, well, I catch your point. I mean, some places it's easier. There's a great line from the Daily Stoic, or at least it is to me. If you get what you want, be happy. If you get what you don't want, grow. And I've been doing a lot of growing lately, but I think
I
that
like it.
places that are harder to like maybe do offer things that we need and don't necessarily want or something. And I applaud you for saying there's no unattractive area in the country, because I think most of us have not developed our sight as keenly. And I confess that sometimes I can write off something I'm looking at in Arizona, which means I haven't looked closely enough.
Well, there's always something going on, and you mentioned Ajo, and Ajo is a really interesting case in point. Ajo is blooming these days. I mean, it is
I didn't know that.
it is flourishing. The Sonora Institute has converted the old Gurley School there into Curley School, excuse me, into a hotel, and it's a conference center. And it's just beautiful. The rooms are the old classrooms that have been remade, but still chalkboards and and that. But the town has a couple of excellent restaurants. It's got. I go out there to the library and give talks quite often, and it's just wonderful. Many years ago, Ed Abbey, right after the copper strike of 1983, but Ed. Really wanted to go out there because the town had depopulated and all the miners had moved away, and Ed wanted to go and take the town over. He said, "We'll take over the city council, and it'll be our town, and it'll just be we'll just sit under palm trees and drink beer all day." And I thought, well, Ed, I got my to-do list is a little long for that right now, but it's a nice idea.
And did he go?
He never did, no.
Okay.
But it was a good idea all the same.
You dashed Ed Abbey's dreams? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think he probably could have found some takers, but and I would have gone and visited him, of course, but
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about your books. So let's do a second break and then we'll come back and talk books.
Great.
You've probably not heard of the AZ-250 commemorative passport site called the Dick Wick Hall Marker. A founder of Siloam and treasured resident, famous for humorous writing, his grave marker there is formed from nuggets donated by local prospectors. His colorful stories got national attention, which helped Siloam flourish, as did his post office, restaurant, and store, a leading citizen. So we're back, and you had just mentioned, I didn't realize you and Ed Abbey were actually friends, but you are. Were.
Yeah.
Are.
Yeah. Were. Yeah. Still are in the cosmic sense, but yeah. In fact, I just gave a short class, four session class on Ed's, some of his books, and really enjoyed talking and thinking about it. And I was asked by a French film company last spring to go and research in the Abbey archives at the University of Arizona in the Special Collections Library there. And it was really quite wonderful. Found myself mentioned a couple of times in the journals and things like that. Something asinine that I had said, or whatever. But it was fun to get back there and see that and to think about Ed. It's a strange thing, but he's been gone for 36 years now. Is that right?
Is it that long?
Yeah.
Oh my
36
gosh.
years. So yeah. I was still wet behind the ears when he left.
I guess so. So your books, which are now, what did you just say? 45 books?
Yes, that's right.
Wow. Can you even list them all? I won't make you right now, but do you know all the titles?
Oh, if I would have to work it out on with a pencil and a piece of paper, but yeah, I think I could probably reconstruct. I mean,
Man. Do you
I wrote the
have
things.
yeah. Do you have favorites or some you like better or some you share more quickly?
Um, my favorite books are the ones that are in print and continue to sell. And but I have many fond books. I have a very long to-do list, and one of my items on the to-do list is to bring back a couple of the books that are out of print, and just publish them myself. And just sell them through the web or what have you. But
Good
again,
idea.
that requires more time than I'm presently allowed to expend on anything. So
Darn
I'll
it.
do it. But yeah, I mean, I have taught many writing courses, and one of the things that I tell my students is you don't sit down to write a book each day. What you want to do is to write a good piece of the story that you're trying to tell. And if you write one good page a day, at the end of a year, you have a book.
Oh.
Just one good page. And so set yourself, deconstruct the task so you're not writing a book, you're just writing a page. And then the next day you pick up where you
Nice.
left off, and the next day you pick where you left off. And that's at a minimum. If you want to write more than that, go ahead. But at a minimum, do a page a day. And at the end of a year, as I say, you've got a book. So, 45 books over a long writing career is nothing. I'm a
Plus, how
slacker. I
many
should have.
articles? Tens of thousands? No,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
just boggles my mind to be that consistent and that prolific is so impressive. Most of us are
Well,
not nearly that
well,
good.
as I tell people, I don't know how to do anything useful, and so I better be good at that. you know.
Well, I think the written word is one of the most important things on the planet. Regular people who look for the podcast know that each episode, each show has a mug, an Arizona mug, and I picked for today's the El Corral Prime Rib Tucson, Arizona, because it went way back in Tucson as you did. And one of my favorites of your books, Tortillas, Tiswin, and T-Bones, A Food History of the Southwest. How did you come up with that? And was that had to be one of the funnest, I'm guessing.
Oh, I loved writing that book. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do the research, and particularly the field research, going and eating lots of things. But I don't want to get too deep into the weeds politically, but I will say this, that when Arizona 1070 passed, what was that, about 10, 12 years ago, that was the bill that essentially allowed stop and search on the strength of,
Oh,
somebody was, driving while brown, let's say.
oh
So I wanted to be able to talk about that publicly and talk about the importance of multiculturalism and the fact that Arizona draws on three really broad rivers of culture, one of them the Anglo, one of them the Hispanic, one of them the Native, the indigenous. So I wanted to talk
yeah.
about all of that without ever once mentioning the word immigration or talking about the law or anything like that. And I thought, and I developed a talk that was the history of the taco. And I still give this talk quite often because the taco, every ingredient in a good taco comes from some place very far removed from every other ingredient. You have corn from the Valley of Mexico. You have chilies that are originally from pretty much where Brazil and Paraguay and Argentina come together. You've got lettuce that was first domesticated in the highlands of what's now Turkey. And then, if you have a chicken taco, well, that chicken is from Southeast Asia. If you have beef, it's from the plains of Eurasia. If you have pork, it was first domesticated in Mesopotamia. So all of these things, nobody doesn't like a taco, I don't think. I don't think I've ever met anybody who doesn't like a taco. But if you were to divorce those elements, I mean, if you were to separate them out and say, okay, well, we're not going to let the people who grow the corn in anymore. And so, of course, you're going to be eating your taco bowl out of your hands. Everybody has something to contribute to the table. And that is, I think, the great lesson that I wanted to impart without, again, as I say, talking in any manner politically directly.
God, that is so adroit.
I think people get it. Or I have never once had anybody object to that talk. And
that is brilliant.
And so, well, it was something that I felt strongly about, but also felt that's you can beat people over the head with ideas and with things, or you can put your arm around them and say, hey, let's go and take a walk, and let's just have a chat. And that's kind of the approach. One
of my bromides is, if you can entertain people, they're willing to be educated.
Yes. Yeah. Very much so.
And boy, you hit it right over the plate. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
now, would you read something from? Go ahead.
Sure. Let's see.
But what were you going to say first? Finish that.
Oh, I was simply going to say that one of the things that I always try to remember is something that I read or heard someplace or another that is very, very true, and that is that people never remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And
wow.
Yeah, and I try
for somebody who spent so much time talking and writing, I don't want to think they don't remember that.
Yeah, well, even this was when I taught, I always had to remember this too, that if in a standard classroom lecture of 45 minutes, let's say 45, 50 minutes, something like that, at the very most, people will remember 3 things that you said. And so so when I give talks, I try to think, what are the 3 things that I need to that I want people to walk away from knowing. And sometimes there aren't 3. Sometimes there's just the one.
Although you have no idea what somebody is going to remember that you might not even remember you said. Because that happens too.
Very true. Yes, people remind me of things that I've said all the time that I disavow saying. So anyway, you asked me to read.
Would you read to us?
A piece,
Yes.
And I haven't looked at this for forever and a day. This comes from a book of mine that was published, I think nearly 30 years ago, called A Desert Bestiary, which is a book about animals of the deserts of the world. And so I'm going to read the little piece on the rattlesnake.
Okay.
As I think you know from my Facebook page, we turn up rattlesnakes about once every week, it seems, at our place. And so I've gotten to be maybe not exactly fond of them, but certainly respectful of them. So anyway, according to the creation
legend, accustomed to them.
Yes. Yeah. I've grown accustomed to your vibration.
Rattle.
Yeah, I'll have to work on that. But anyway, here we go. According to the creation legend of the Hohokam, the ancient people of the desert Southwest, at the beginning of time, Elder Brother, the creator god, made rattlesnake with detachable teeth so that human children could play with them. The children, however, made constant noise while they played so that Elder Brother could not sleep. Finally, he supplied Rattlesnake with permanent teeth, saying, "Now I have done this for you, and when anything comes near you, you must bite it and kill it. From now on, people will be afraid of you. You will not have a friend, and you will always crawl modestly along." So,
Whoa.
Well, Charles Darwin observes that the rattlesnake, the only venomous snake that issues an audible alert before striking, would no more give intentional warning to its target than a house cat would tell a mouse it was about to devour it. He remarks instead that the rattle that acts something like the hood of a cobra or the raised hackles of a dog as a signal, that is, to go away. Just leave me alone. Snakes are generally timid and non-aggressive creatures, and because of that, Darwin's explanation makes very good sense, but it's not widely shared. And even today in parts of the Southwest, you'll hear that a snake's rattles, which are vigorously collected for the tourist market, will go on shaking until sunset once they are separated from the body. The rattler's spinal column is indeed a durable creation, but it has no powers to sustain life without the heart and other organs. One bit of folklore that does have a basis in scientific fact is that the bite of a young rattler is more toxic than that of an older one. As is the case with so many animal species, including ours, younger creatures lack self-control, and so their bites are full of venom. Older rattlers, it would appear, have a greater sense of what is appropriate, and they adjust the venom to the task at hand. In all this, it's worth remembering that more people die of lightning strikes than snakebite every year. And thus it's strangely natural that desert peoples should long have equated snakes with lightning and water. The Aboriginal Wuturu people hold that the carpet snake owns the water of the Australian desert, and the traditional Tohono O'odham, our desert people, believe that every water source has a serpent god, a korua, to watch over it. The O'odham water-snake connection is an ancient one, and its origins are Mesoamerican. The Uto-Aztecan linguistic element ko means snake, and it turns up in the name of the Aztec plumed serpent god, Quetzalcoatl. Right? So, in O'odham belief, protector serpents were not aggressive, although they were endowed with huge fangs. But in any contact with humans, the korua is usually lost. And in the event, there's a korua sounding out there now, thunder.
Oh.
In the event of the serpent god's death, the O'odham held its associated spring would dry up. And perhaps that idea of such a vulnerable, if fearsome-looking snake kept the desert people from tampering with precious water sources.
Wow.
Not all water serpents lived underground, however. Some dwell in the hearts of the boiling summer thunderstorms that bring rain to the desert, not in life-replenishing droplets, but in great black undulating curtains of water, leaving floods and destruction in their wake. It was no sin to kill such serpents, but even the most resourceful Tohono O'odham shaman was no match for the koruas of the air. And that's it.
Wow. That I had just, I think a week or so ago on the podcast, said in Arizona, water is like the Northern Lights. It's better because it's rare. And those big storms, and I think, isn't it Navajo that say male rain and female rain?
Yes.
And male rain are the
Yeah.
thunder, lightning storms, and the females,
and we
that
should be
gentle
having
afternoon.
Yeah, and we should be having female rain at this time of year, but there's boom, boom out there. So, you know, the boys are still playing upstairs.
I could talk to you forever, and I'm going to hope you will come back because there are so many things we didn't touch on today, and I really want to.
It would be my honor. I'd be delighted. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, so much. You're a wonder. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's just a treat. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
We'd really like to hear from you about anything this show led you to think about. Write to us at celebratingaz.com. The wizard behind making a conversation into a podcast is Tom Heidinger. The music comes from Daniel Blatney. And I'm Dana Cooper.